Our opening words are excerpted from a longer piece by Reverend Anna Bladel titled On Disability. Disability justice asks, what do you need? What do you need to live and move free? Disability justice asks, what do we need? What do we need to survive and heal and thrive? Disability justice proclaims that earthly belonging is birthright and sacred worth is inherent, and our need for each other is a hallowed and precious offering. Disability justice boldly refuses the lies of anti-Blackness and anti-transness, of respectability and purity, of endless expansion and inevitable exhaustion. Disability justice uproots the insidious aims of surveillance and control of wild lands and strange bodies and unruly body minds. Disability justice honors the kinship of sacredness and strangeness, of awkwardness and holiness and messiness, of deviance and divergence and divinity. Disability justice's rhizomatic roots are power lines pulsing with wild resistance, brilliant adaptation, and bold refusal. We are each and all invited, able to tap in. Disability justice is you and me and we. Disability justice knows none of us are free until all of us are free. Disability justice enfleshes fierce solidarity and tender care. Disability justice honors sovereignty and autonomy. Disability justice remembers that none of us can survive on our own. Our chalice is now lit, and our opening song today is Singing for Our Lives, performed by the UU-SGU congregation. Words and music by Holly Neer. The video shows a small choir group and a guitarist performing in a comfortably lit room.
Let me try that again.
This is Gretchen again, and I am so happy to welcome you to our April Uplift Access webinar. These monthly lunchtime learning sessions provide lay leaders and religious professionals an opportunity to learn about an array of topics regarding accessibility, inclusion, and disability justice, and how to apply this into their work within Unitarian Universalism. As Unitarian Universalists, we affirm the inherent worth and dignity of all people, but we don't always know what that looks like in action. We are called to dismantle forms of oppression in ourselves and in our institutions, but we don't always know how. Through presentations on accessible practices, dismantling systemic ableism, and by highlighting the disabled UU experience, we aspire to equip you with the knowledge and tools to live these values out loud when it comes to our disabled siblings. This month, we are here to discuss the wave of disability injustice that's been growing since January. Of course, as disabled folks, we are already used to navigating the injustice of systemic ableism that exists all around us in this society not designed with us in mind. It's made up of those all too regular, inaccessible buildings, menus, games, jobs that we've just come to expect. But we've also come to expect more, especially from our government. We've had income for people with disabilities since the passage of Social Security in 1935. Civil rights protections required for entities receiving federal funds with the passage of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973, and then required for most all other entities with the ADA in 1990. We've had home and community-based services programs since the early 80s. We even received some accessibility requirement updates from the federal government just last summer, aimed at improving accessibility to websites, hospitals, and more. But in recent months, we've been facing a multitude of threats stemming from executive orders, lawsuits, and the gutting of offices and departments that serve people like me. It's been scary. It's been a lot for us all to deal with on our own. So today, we're going to deal with these issues together in community. In a little bit, we'll open it up so that any of y'all can share what's on your mind or ask questions. But first, we'll share a bit more about the issues we're facing in this moment. And speaking of not being alone, I am super glad to be joined by my colleague, Reverend Amanda Schuber, the UUA's Disability Justice Associate today. And now, Amanda, I will turn it over to you to talk about education, autism, and whatever else you've got for us.
Thanks, Gretchen. Hi, everyone. It is so good to be with you. I am Reverend Amanda Schuber. My pronouns are she, her, or anything offered in love. I am a white, middle-aged woman with blondish brown hair that goes just past my shoulders. I'm wearing a black t-shirt today with a heart that is rainbow colored in stained glass with a chalice. I don't know if you can actually see it. And my black reading glasses, which have become my favorite addition to my wardrobe. I am coming to you today from Macon, Georgia, and High Street Unitarian Universalist Church, where I serve as the developmental minister. It is so good to be with you today. And as Gretchen said, facing these challenges together eases some of the burden that I know many of us feel. We know that we are currently facing a swell and storm of things coming out of our federal government that are deeply impacting the disabled community in numerous ways. And we also know that these things are impacting other communities of color and socioeconomic status in even greater ways than we will ever be able to really imagine. I want to talk to you today a little bit about some of the educational things that have been coming down that we're looking at right now. I know a lot of that can be really scary, and it's a lot of information at one time. Some of the important things to know are that we are going to be in the coming months facing numerous things, including the continued underfunding of services for disability work, both in schools and in our broader medical system. We're living with false information, which creates stigma and other issues for people with disabilities. We're facing an enforcement vacuum, privacy issues, lack of rights to bodily autonomy, and activism fatigue, which I know many of us are already deeply ensconced in. Currently, we have a lot that's been coming out from the government around the Department of Education, which concerns the IDEA grants. These are grants that work to help provide resources to lower income school districts to provide educational support services for students with disabilities. These grants are already funded very lowly. They're only about 16% of the federal target, and they serve a high portion of students of color and children in immigrant families. Cuts to this particular funding would deepen the problem and the lack of aides, therapists, and inclusion support services. And this impacts our community in ways that we don't even think about. When students do not have the services they need, if they're not able to be in mainstream classrooms with other students learning, it slows down the socialization. It prevents them from getting the full range of educational services that they deserve. And this also creates a vacuum within schools because you have teachers then who are trying to support students in ways that they do not know or understand completely or have not had extensive training in, which leads to classroom management problems, which leads to even further issues. This also becomes an issue in lower income communities, which are less likely to be financially supported through tax revenue and whatnot. And so we see how this is not just a disability issue, but disability justice impacts out into other communities broadly. We know that the Education Department's Office of Civil Rights Enforcement, those are the people that take care of 504 plans, making sure that schools are providing the services needed. And if there are problems, they are able to investigate and do litigation. That has been weakened dramatically, which means we're going to have fewer avenues to challenge discrimination practices or inadequate accommodations. This was a system that was already really taxed and did not have enough to work with in the beginning, and now we're facing even further cuts. In this last week, we have seen other things happen outside of the Department of Education, but into the National Health Service, or into our Health and Human Services and Administration, are considering apparently creating a centralized registries of individuals diagnosed with autism. I happen to have a daughter who is on the autism spectrum, and so this is an issue that is very near and dear to my heart. Now, while we don't know if this is actually going to happen, a lot of stuff is coming out and is being challenged in courts and things like that. We still need to be aware of it. This came after the head of Health and Human Services promoted false information about the lives and the potential happiness of people with autism, just saying that it is vaccines that cause autism. This has been categorically disproven. This kind of false information continues to lead to stigma and will not may prevent people from seeking early intervention treatments, which we know are essential to learning for individuals with autism. Those early interventions really do help. So this further damages and creates more inaccurate information about vaccines and about the autism community. Additionally, from the Department of Health and Human Services, we are seeing inaccurate information about the continuing COVID-19 crisis and the lasting impact on communities, specifically communities of color, communities that are unable to access resources, and communities that are lower income and unable to tap into medical resourcing for the effects of long COVID. These other things create data security concerns, stigma and discrimination, and a general erosion of trust in who we can go to with our health concerns and with other things that are going on. That's a lot, and if that's not enough, we also have severe cuts to our mental health services. We know that there has been funding cuts to the suicide prevention hotline that serves LGBTQIA plus youth. This hotline handled over 1.3 million calls and texts since 2022 alone, and reducing the funding to these services greatly impacts our communities and their mental health and being able to access services. And we know that mental health services in communities are already stretched to the max post COVID-19 restrictions. We have seen a huge increase in those seeking access to mental health services. And while we are so excited to see that people are trying to reach out for help and access, what they're finding consistently are up to year or two wait list in order to get in to receive psychiatric and counseling services, as well as severe medication shortages and wait times on receiving medication or having to change medications, which can be really damaging for people seeking mental health services. Additionally, the telehealth service restriction is a huge concern and something that we are watching, those of us who look on a legislative level. Autistic youth and adults and people with disabilities and older communities rely on telehealth to avoid things like sensory overload, or to just access services that may be further away when transportation is an issue, or just being able to get to and from places. Narrowing these reimbursements for telehealth would disproportionately hurt low income and rural families, specifically, many of whom are people of color and or recent immigrants who rely on telehealth services in order to reach a doctor or mental health services of any kind. If we repeal or weaken the ACA mental health mandates that were put in place, that's going to limit the number of visits that people have in order to see mental health professionals and whatnot. And we know that this is a barrage of issues. There are a lot of things going on, and I think one of the best things we can do is to continue to talk to each other and learn more about how things are coming down, recognizing that a lot of what is coming out of our government right now is being challenged in court, is being tested, and that ultimately we are hopeful that a lot of these things will be pushed back on, and that we will be able to prevent some of the lasting damage. I've said a lot of words, and so I'm going to let Gretchen step in here for a minute and talk a little bit about some other issues, and then we can have some further conversation on how some of these things are impacting our communities.
Hey, this is Gretchen again. Thanks, Amanda. That was a lot. And as someone who, gosh, both has lived with mental health disabilities for many years and was actually excited to get an autism diagnosis about 5 years ago. I I'm really feeling those things that you mentioned. I I'm going to mention some other recent threats to our ability to thrive. Um, so some of those have come via document deletion. Um, Specifically, many resources housed on the Department of Justice's website that describe how businesses and other entities should meet the standards of the ADA, Americans with Disabilities Act, just disappeared in March. As someone who's relied on these regulations for my own access needs for many years and has even referred businesses to them in the past, this had me extremely concerned. While the law still remains in place, the removal of these 11 technical assistance documents can be really confusing and frustrating for businesses, nonprofits, and anyone wanting to create a more accessible environment for the folks they serve. These documents had historically provided public entities with clarifications on how to meet various ADA requirements, although they were never legally binding regulations. They were influential resources for understanding how the Department of Justice interpreted the ADA. These documents addressed several aspects of physical accessibility, including accessible parking requirements, hotel room accessibility, maintenance of accessible features at businesses and other buildings, hospital visitation policies, and more. The DOJ justified the withdrawal as part of a broader initiative to reduce what it termed as unnecessary regulatory burdens on businesses, emphasizing the encouragement of economic growth. But their withdrawal has created a lot of unease as it signals a potential reduction and a reduction in federal emphasis on detailed ADA compliance support that used to be provided for many years. Without these technical assistance documents that were easy to find on the website before, businesses and nonprofits and folks lose a lot of practical DOJ clarified information that many relied on when interpreting their responsibilities under the ADA, which can be confusing to folks not familiar with it. It's important to remember that the underlying law, the ADA, and its enforcement mechanisms remain unchanged. Organizations now must just navigate ADA compliance a little more independently. If you are looking for guidance for yourself or your congregation or anything, I'd recommend the wealth of information available from the ADA National Network. The network consists of 10 ADA centers across the country, and each of their websites contains a great deal of information. And you can call or email them if you can't find the information on accessibility that you need. And we'll get a link dropped in the chat for that. And you can always reach out for more information to me. So having our access needs met helps us to enjoy life independently. And the ADA has made a big impact on that for me and millions of other folks. But it's not the only thing that makes that possible. Looming along with the other issues Amanda and I have mentioned are the massive potential cuts to Medicaid. Established 60 years ago now, over 1/3 of disabled people in the United States rely on Medicaid. for everything from primary care to preventive visits to surgical procedures to counseling in psychiatry to medications, personal care assistance. I mean, you probably know a lot of this, but it's a lot. Medicaid became a lifeline to me after suddenly going blind in 2007. And it also made it possible for me to get not only needed health care, but assistance with hiring a reader as well, someone to help me with visual tasks that were no longer accessible to me. And I got that through the CDS, or Consumer Directed Services program. CDS is offered as part of home and community-based services, and that's funded through Medicaid dollars. It makes it so people with disabilities can get the assistance they need to live in and participate in their communities and not get stuck in nursing homes. This is something everyone should be able to do, is participate in their communities, to live in the community. It's frightening to think that these potential cuts could decrease access to home and community-based services for millions of people with disabilities, along with placing needed healthcare and prescription drugs out of reach. While letting those in power know your concerns is certainly important, and we'll provide some links for that too, if you don't already have your legislators on speed dial. It's also incredibly important for us to be in community in these times with one another, especially now. But at this moment, in just a minute, we're gonna turn it over to you all to share your concerns, thoughts, questions, and be in community here with us. And first, we're gonna have just a very brief musical break to breathe. And this next song we'll share is one of my favorites, Come Come Whoever You Are. It's performed in this video by the Oakland Chancel Choir. And the video shows doors in a variety of shapes and sizes, all open, waiting to welcome you.
Come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshipper, lover of leaving. Ours is no caravan of despair. Come, yet again come. Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshipper, whoever you're leaving, cause it's your caravan, hour is leaving, cause it's no 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 caravan of despair. Come, yet again come.
Hey y'all, this is Gretchen again. We will now open it up to y'all to share your thoughts, questions and all of that, feel free to type your question or thought in the chat for Wendy to share out loud. Or you can raise your hand with, I think there's an icon for that. I usually just hit Alt Y. Or if there's a silence and you want to jump in, feel free to unmute yourself and join the discussion. Let us know what you're thinking.
While we wait for people to type, this is Amanda. I will just say that, though most of these proposals now, like eliminating the Department of Education, establishing an autism registry, they're not final. These things are, things that are being talked about, but their mere suggestion, we know, creates a state of uncertainty that strains our already strained community through special education and our mental health systems and the ADA. And these proposed cuts would hit our communities in deep ways and would also widening longstanding disparities that already exist in diagnosis, support, and outcomes. And as a result, I know our community is expending a significant amount of advocacy energy to defend the policies that we've worked so hard over the years to already have in place. And even though we hope desperately that these don't come to be, we know that there is damage being done just by the mere suggestion and diverting focus, eroding our trust, and risking deepening disparities in otherwise marginalized communities. So, it is now the time to really band together and support each other in great ways. And it looks like we have a couple of things in the chat.
Wonderful. Do you want to
Wendy,
read those?
do you want me
I'm
to read
happy-
them? I can read them.
I'm happy to read them.
Go for it.
So Kat writes, since a disproportionate number of people on the spectrum have other disabilities and or are trans non-binary, the impact of the demonization, dehumanization of autistic people has been overwhelming. I've been a disability activist since I was 14 years old, volunteer in a locked men's ward, and saw the inmates disempowered and daily experience of terror. I am very frightened for all those whose voices are constantly repressed. Thank you, Kat.
Yeah, thank you, Kat.
Okay, Lalani, you're welcome to share aloud or use chat. I will spotlight you if you would like to be spotlighted and to share aloud. Kristen writes, my oldest is autistic. We are worried about the proposed things. Do you think there is any value in asking their psychiatrist? And we are worried about the proposed research.
Yes.
Can you say more about asking? Well, I'll let Amanda take it.
Well, I would like to know a little bit more, Kristen, about maybe what you might be interested in asking the psychiatrist. What I can tell you right now is that nothing has been asking them to guard their information. That should be covered under HIPAA laws, which are the Medical Protection Act. However, we don't think that's going to happen. We think that they are going to blow right past HIPAA and share this information. So I don't know. There might be an ability to opt out, and we don't know what they're going to do with this information. This proposed, as you say, research in quotes, is scary. As someone who has a child who is on the spectrum, we worry, about what the potential is for, what those lists could happen, but there may be an opt-out. We just don't know yet. Again, this is not policy per se that we know yet. This is also really evolving very fast. This just sort of happened this week. And I see Leilani has a hand up.
Yeah, Leilani, go ahead.
First, yes, everything that's happening in these conversations nationally is terrifying. Absolutely. There's a lot of first, yes, there's absolutely a lot of stress, uncertainty, and current human rights violations happening right now. And I wanted to say it's a both and. So I appreciate this conversation and the resources. And I feel really strongly about talking about being a UU and with other people, because we have crafted this beautiful place of community, in my home, in my community, in my home congregation, how we've intentionally crafted our RE to be inclusive of children who have sensory things, who have, who are on the neuro rainbows, and the ways that we build that into our adult education, the way that we welcome people. So I guess I feel like very much I feel the terrible. And I also think that it's important to work on my UU elevator speech and intersect it with our social justice values around how very much the intersections of race and disability and two-spirit LGBTQ folks, like to include that, and with our children, because our children are also at those intersections, and we have a beautiful thing to share. And so I guess I also have very much both and just blessings to you all. Do whatever you need to do to regulate yourselves today, and sending you all love.
Thank you, Leilani. Yes, I hear that so much. And personally, during these times that I found more frightening than many other years recently, somehow, even though it seems like one after another, I feel lucky to be a UU. I feel lucky that I found my church 10 years ago, and that uh, similar to your church, my church has done an amazing job of integrating neurodivergent learning styles and just so much access for people with disabilities, and people that care and people that understand and listen when they don't. Um, and I I think, as Amanda was making sure to say earlier, that we don't none of this has happened. It's all, they're trying to scare us and they are scaring us because it's scary. But we've got each other, and we'll take it as it comes.
Yeah.
But
This is Amanda. Leilani, would you mind sharing what congregation you're a part of?
Yes, I'm the RE Equity, Inclusion, and Creativity Advocate at Westside UU in West Seattle, and we have a beautiful UU community, small, about 150, and then our RE program is very much based on consent for the children, lots of activity options with all the ways that we show up neurally and physically included. And so I love our work. I love how it includes adults with different kinds of differences and creates a more welcoming space. And continuing to do that work also teaches the adults through just culture immersion. So I love all of those things. Thanks.
You, Leilani. Yes, and I think one of the most wonderful things that we can do as a community, and being a part of the disability community for pretty much my entire life, I can tell you that we do community very well. And I think, Leilani, just like you mentioned, talking about our UU faith, living our values out loud in the world is going to be extremely important. And one of the best and most helpful things we can do is to be talking and sharing resources with other congregations, so that those congregations that may be smaller and not have that kind of ability to support staff in this way can figure out how to do these integrated services, including other smaller congregations in your social justice work, because they may not be able to have that movement on their own, but together we are stronger. And this means even going outside of our denomination and recognizing that we need partnerships with other communities of faith to talk about the inherent worth and dignity of every body and every body. And so, that's how we're going to, best support each other, I think, in this work is by learning how to do things together and teaching each other the best way forward. So thank you for the work you're doing, Leilani. That's really important work.
Okay, there's a couple more in the chat. So let me add in response to let me back up. So Leilani had several yes and movements to agree with you, Gretchen, as well as to Reverend Amanda. And
Cool.
there were love responses happening in people's videos as you were speaking.
Thanks for
Okay.
making that accessible, Wendy.
Sure, yeah. In response to the proposed research, the comment is that the plan for this research is for non-research. Do you remember the LOVAS? I think I'm saying that right. Research. Yeah. And then Amanda responded to Leilani with loving the living our values out loud in the world. Okay, and then Shayna says, as both a trans, non-binary, and autistic neurodivergent person, I am deeply concerned on so many levels. On this Yom HaShoah, Holocaust Remembrance Day, I apologize if I didn't say that correctly. The proposal to create registry is a reminder of this same thing that was done in the 1930s.
Yes.
And there are several, there's a response, emoticon responses
Thank you,
to that.
Shauna. Yeah.
And Leilani says, I've been taking ASL and deaf culture lessons for 3 years. I forget that I'm often signing. So yes, and that.
Yes.
Um, so much to learn. It sounds like Imran's here and has a raised hand. Yeah, what's up, Imran?
Hello, and thank you for this space. I am so, so grateful for it and appreciate you all so much. I just wanted to share a little bit about things that I'm feeling and things that I'm wishing for in this moment as we're thinking about this together. And I think right now there's this consensus that it's really, really important to be in community, and I absolutely agree. And a thing that I'm feeling is just like how scary it is that we are at this pace, like how quickly we're just losing the ability to live in community with people, both through the removal of all the things that disabled people need to live and the expansion of all the ways that you can be incarcerated or institutionalized because, right, disabled people know that you don't have to put people in a cage to throw them away. And I also want to name that, the injustices from this administration are building on the injustices of the previous administration. And it's been years and years leading up to this moment that we're in right now. And specifically that we're also dealing with, I think, the downstream impacts of the Biden administration adopting a policy of denialism around the pandemic, which is much, much more than misinformation. It's the destruction of public health. It's the destruction of our belief in collective care. It's the mainstreaming of anti-vax beliefs, which we're seeing play out now. It's in right-wing and eugenicist reactions to mass death and mass disablement. And it's also things like the removal of our health safety net that should not have been temporary. It should have been, the baseline for more and more support for people. And instead, we're seeing the rollback of it. So I feel so much fear and frustration under this new administration, but I'm also trying to think about like my own circles and what I can do as an individual. And so I want to think more about our justice movements and what we can do. And I really feel like we very desperately need to be able to have an analysis of eugenics in this moment and to be able to understand that the roots of all of these attacks on our bodily autonomy, right, on our reproductive health care, on trans rights, um, they all have roots in systemic ableism and eugenics. But see, the thing that's difficult is that eugenics is historically a very progressive position. And UUs are not exempt from that. UUs have been involved historically in the eugenics movement. And this is something that I find is really hard to speak about in progressive spaces. It's really hard to think about together because of those our history with it. But we need to reckon with this. And I want us to be able to challenge ableism from this administration, to challenge saneism, fat phobia, ageism, eugenics. But how are we also challenging that like in ourselves? Like we are rapidly losing the ability to live in community. And I also just want to uplift that community care comes from disabled people, right? Like it's a move against institutional care. It's about the right to receive care in your community, not in a jail, not in a hospital, not in an asylum, not from the state. But if we're losing the ability to be in community in that way, right, it's not just happening there. It's being enabled in our own spaces. So that's a thought that I'm struggling, wrestling with right now. And yeah, just so appreciative of this space and for opening this up.
Thanks, Amran.
Thank you so much for naming that, Amarin.
Well, before we move into some closing items, Amanda, did you have anything else you wanted to say?
I just, I want to, you can Google, anything these days and find out all the legislative things that are going on. You can listen to the news, you can do all those things. I really want to encourage people though to remember that we cannot drink from a fire hose. And right now it is a fire hose of really bad information pretty much every day. And so, especially as people who have been in the fight for a very long time, this is nothing new to us in a lot of ways, which is sad and a little comforting for me, at least me in some ways, because at least I know this territory. And we need to be having these deep, hard conversations. We need to be reminding our people that when we're doing social justice work, that it is all intersectional, that nothing we do doesn't touch another area, another marginalized community, and that we have a responsibility to highlight how these things are impacting our communities across the board. And remembering that my liberation is tied to yours, and that if one of us isn't free, then none of us are free. So I appreciate all the work you're doing in your congregations, and I appreciate you being here. I do hope you will have these conversations, have the hard ones, talk about genocide, talk about eugenics, talk about the way these things are impacting your life. It may not seem like a lot, but I do believe in changing hearts, one mind and one heart at a time, which is slow work, but I have seen it move communities. So thank you for allowing me to be with you today, Gretchen. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Amanda. So grateful for your presence and your words and all the work you do. I want to thank everyone listening and watching, whether it's right now or later on a recording. And I want to thank you for engaging in this work of love with us. I want to thank, of course, Amanda Schuber again for being here and presenting today. Thank you to Wendy Warwick for managing tech. Thank you to our ASL interpreters, our cart captioner, and everyone for being here. Our closing song today is one of my favorites. It's I Wait by Galen Lee, an awesome disabled musician who won NPR's Tiny Desk concert in 2016 The video shows Galen Lee sitting in her wheelchair playing her violin, and she's accompanied by a guy on a guitar off to the side. Thanks.
Can you see me way in the back here? I've been waiting in line. It's been a long time, can't get no service. Still I'm hoping for a sign that one day things will change and we can finally take our place. That history won't forget us or try to minimize our pain. And so I'll wait. And so I'll wait. Did you know that when I get angry, I breathe fire? I could burn this place down. You may not realize all of the small ways I am not welcome, but just take a look around. So everybody knows that you need a place to go. And living isn't easy if you incinerate your home. And so I stay. And so I stay. I may seem angry, so please forgive me, but I am still not free in this society. How long must we keep fighting for our right to be living? Wrongs overdue for righting. We're a bit too forgiving. So when you see them make claims of progress, take a good look and see who isn't there. We need a seat now at the table, so please invite us, or don't pretend to care. Thank you.
Please join us again as you're able on May 22nd for our next Uplift Access resource webinar, where we'll talk about some more ways to increase accessibility for everybody at your congregation. And check out links in the chat to sign up for the Uplift Access monthly newsletter. And you can email Amanda Schuber if you have questions at aschuber@uua.org, or you can email me at accessibility@uua.org. And we look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks so much.